Okay, hello, people of YouTube land, those that are part of Ted's Discord, and also if you're part of Mike's Discord. I don't know if Bud has a Discord, since this used to be a CGG thing. I mean, CCG, god damn it. Yeah, this used to be a CCG type of thing, but it is not. Even though, like, by the time this comes out, obviously, CCG hasn't been a thing in a while, but this is just halfway through this season. But anyway, as you can tell, this is the movie review podcast. Also, thank you to those that follow Ted and I on Twitch. I fucking forgot that because
Scuffed.
it's what happens when I'm not reading my fucking script. But yeah, this is the movie review podcast where we take a director's filmography, we review it, and we go over the plot, background, information, and talk about what we like and dislike about the film. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And we are obviously still on Sam Raimi, and we are reviewing Spider-Man 2. Okay. Obviously directed by Sam Raimi, of course. Spider-Man 2 had a budget of $200 million and had a box office return of $795.9 million. And the movie was released at the Man Village Theater in June 25th, 2004, and then released worldwide in June 30th, 2004. The development of the movie came along due to the success of Spider-Man, and it was greenlit immediately when, due to the success of the first Spider-Man film. Now, Raimi was signed to direct, the sequel, of course, and in 2002, Sony hired Smallville alumni Alfred Goff and Miles Miller to write the script for the film. And this was chosen because both Raimi and Maguire were fans of the TV show Smallville. That being said, there was another writer, David Cope, that was added in to co-write, and Cope originally wanted to have the do the Gwen Stacy and Harry Osborn story, and to have Gwen killed in the middle of the second movie because Harry Osborn hasn't suffered enough.
Gotta really flush out that 3-film villain arc, dude.
It's so weird how, and we're gonna come to this again when we come to casting, but it's really funny that it seems that things just are pitching old ideas, and then later on they just get made. But that being said, Michael Chabon was also hired to rewrite the draft, and originally it was going to be Doc Ock, who was infatuated with Mary Jane, and his mechanical limbs use endorphins to counteract the pain being attached to his body, which he enjoys. He injures two muggers on a date, which horrifies Mary Jane, and in the resulting battle with Spider-Man, his tentacles are fused together, and the fusion begins to kill him.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the script, Octavius was originally the creator of the genetically altered spider from the first film, and Peter gives an antidote to remove is given an antidote to remove his powers. This means when Octavius is dying with his tentacles, he wants to extract Spider-Man's spine to save himself. And this leads to an alliance with Harry, and beforehand, Harry and the Daily Bugle put a $10 million price on Spider-Man's head, causing the city to turn against him. And Raimi sifted through all these drafts and just picked out what he liked. and he felt thematically the film had to explore Peter's conflict with his personal wants against his responsibility of being Spider-Man, and took inspiration from Superman 2 for this. As for Dr. Octopus's debut, the storyline was taken from the 1966 storyline, If This Be My Destiny, and also the storyline from 1967, Spider-Man No More, specifically The Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Dr. Octopus was decided to be the villain due to the fact that he was both a visually interesting villain that was a physical match for Spider-Man. He also had a sympathetic, backstory. And also the fact that during the 15-year development of the first film, Dr. Octopus was repeatedly considered to be the villain. And Raimi also, he changed basically Dr. Octopus's backstory, but it's roughly similar. And he wanted the conflict to be with Peter trying to save Dr. Octopus from his demons as opposed to, killing him. When it comes down to casting, Tobey Maguire almost did not come back for this, despite given a 3-film contract. He injured his back filming Seabiscuit, and that pre-existing back condition almost didn't have him come back, since Raimi heard that Maguire could be paralyzed due to the injury in his back. And Jake Gyllenhaal was cast to replace Maguire due to, and according to a source of Maguire, the two actors resemble each other so much that he said that a year from now the public wouldn't know the difference. That being said, Maguire's girlfriend's father, Ronald Mayer of Universal Studios, helped Maguire regain the role with a salary of $17 million. And Maguire went through tests to make sure that his back was fit for filming. And which again, Jake Gyllenhaal would come later to play Mysterio in like the second Tom Holland film, which I don't know if that's how like movie franchises work. Seems to be kind of like the only one besides maybe like the James Bond franchise that I can think of where it's like, hey, let's use ideas that we wanted to put in before and just do them now that we couldn't do, prior.
I don't know. In some series, I think that's definitely true. I don't know about this one because if I'm not mistaken, it was a different studio. Like, obviously, Marvel still had their hands involved, but like, if this was Raimi's decision making, I think that one was much more like through Disney for Gyllenhaal's. By the time he got there, anyway. So
yeah. This
sure.
is Sony by during this time.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that Sony is no longer.
They still have some rights to Spider-Man. I don't remember exactly what the details are, but they still have something involved there.
Right. Now, as for the part of Dr. Octopus, because everybody reprises their roles, we just basically just have to talk about the addition of like Dr. Octopus, really.
That's all right.
If I, unless you want me to fucking say whoever the hell J. Jonah Jameson's like,
Nah.
Son. Nah, he doesn't really matter.
I was gonna say, I think the only one that really is important is Octavius.
Yeah. Now, other people that were considered for the role were Chris Cooper, Ed Harris,
Harris. Okay.
and Christopher Walken.
Walken would have been so great. Oh, Walken would have been so great. The Watch.
But Albert Molina was cast for the role, and he underwent physical training for the role. And reaction to his casting was mixed. Raimi chose him because he was impressed with his performance in the movie Frida, and also felt that his large physical size was true to the comic book character. Molina only briefly discussed the role and was not aware that he was a strong contender. He was a big fan in the Marvel context, I mean, comics, goddamn, and was excited for the part. Although he was not familiar with Doctor Octopus, he found the element of the comics that he found one element of the comics that he wanted to maintain, and that was the character's cruel, sardonic sense of humor. And we're going to go into filming. So here's the funny thing. A few of the actors actually did their own stunts, including Tobey Maguire, despite having an injured back. And also, after the scare surrounding his back pains, Tobey Maguire relished in actually enjoyed doing his own stunts and even creating a joke with Sam Raimi by adding the "my back" line in the movie. Yeah, that was a reference to his back injury.
Great.
That's brilliant. What's funny is that the person that plays Aunt May, Rosemary Harris, even took a turn putting her stunt double out of work.
Jesus Christ.
So she did her own stunts. It got so bad that Alfred Molina joked that the stunt team would trick him into performing his own stunts.
God damn it.
Also, during filming, J.K. Simmons stated that filming the scene where Spider-Man gets his suit back, when Simmons said he's a thief, his fake teeth popped out of his mouth.
Love that.
Filming took 8 weeks, and Raimi, during this, wanted to basically evoke the cinema of Fritz Lang and also the film of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. During this, especially during different scenes, like probably when I think about it, probably the scene where where Dr. Octopus actually like attacks everybody in the hospital. Even though I don't really get like a Caligari thing, but I get like a horror vibe with that, with like Raimi's background in horror. That being said, a camera system called Spider Cam was used during this film to express more of Spider-Man's worldview, and at times dropped 50 stories with shot lengths over 2,400 feet in New York City or 32,000 feet in Los Angeles. That being said, the Spider Cam is used more in this. It was used in the last film, but only one shot during the final shot of the previous movie.
Okay.
Also on set, Dr. Octopus's tentacles a lot of the times were actually practical and were actually controlled by puppeteers. And funny enough, Belita referred to his tentacles as Larry, Harry, Mo, and Flo.
Okay.
Yeah. Which was a joke because one of the one that was working with the Flo tentacle was a lady, but like apparently she was so skilled with that tentacle that she was able to perform delicate operations like removing his glasses and lighting his cigar.
That's I need to go back and watch, like, looking for the practicality of that, to be honest, because, like, not that I would have chalked it up to CG, right?
Right.
For the most part. Puppeteering is fascinating. Like, obviously there are places that, like, some CGI is necessary, right? Like when he's walking around to the tentacles, obviously a puppeteer is not going to support his body weight with fishing line, right? Like, I get it. But also, like, there are certain tasks that, like, now that I'm thinking about it, like, absolutely could be practical. And I don't know. That sounds fascinating. I need to go back and watch and pay attention just for that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Um, that being said, filming wasn't all uh uh sunshine and rainbows. No injuries that I've heard so far. Which does this really make it a Sam Raimi movie if there isn't an injury?
Pre-existing injuries, I think it counts.
All right. But the film was scored by Danny Elfman. However, Elfman and Raimi had a falling out during this, and Elfman considered this to be a miserable experience. Uh, Christopher Young, who did the soundtrack for Hellraiser, was brought in. They wanted Elfman to do like a cue from like the movie Hellraiser, but he couldn't get it close to it. And he wasn't going to imitate Christopher Young, so he suggested that they hire Christopher Young. Christopher Young tried doing the cue, but couldn't get it close either. So they ended up having to license the cue from Hellraiser, as opposed to like, doing something similar that would, not get them sued where they could, which I don't know what the cue is. And we watched Hellraiser. So
I just, like, I only had one creative idea: pay my licensing fees to use it from a different movie, and that's what you hired me on to do, is to pay my rights to somebody else. That's either a dude securing a bag or he had one accidental fucking good idea. Jesus Christ.
and with that being said, that's background. Let's go into plot.
All right. So the plot is it essentially follows a similar storyboard arc to the last one. There is instead of Peter discovering his powers to become Spider-Man, he is working with, like, maintaining his powers and battling the like internal pressures of being a hero, which kind of carries over from the end of the last movie. And great power comes great responsibility. And yeah, we know the whole fucking thing. For the villain arc of this one, we've mentioned Dr. Octavius several times, but essentially he is trying to recreate nuclear fusion and just building a fucking sun. He has robot arms to assist him in doing it that's got this patented neural link, and then the neural link explodes because he gets smacked with the fucking solar flare of the sun that he goddamn built, and then he just kind of loses his fucking mind and uses his tentacles to try and steal things, kill people, and make another fucking sun. Yeah. That's pretty much it. As far as plot goes, like I said, follows a pretty similar, like, storyboard structure, just kind of cut and replace villain and cut and replace the emotions of Peter. But there you go, pretty simple. Likes and dislikes. Stallman, I'm gonna let you pick where we start. I feel like I've taken over the past few times, so
I'm gonna throw the Band-Aid off on this and go right into dislikes.
okay.
And we talked about this in the last thing where, because I only have there's a couple of things I can nitpick. Like some of the CG hasn't aged well, although the CG is better in this.
A lot better. A lot better.
There's some, like, again, wooden acting performances, although Kirsten Dunst and James Franco, like, they're better in this movie than they're in the last one, even though there's a couple scenes where it's just like that aren't great. But like the biggest issue with this movie, and Ted basically, said that he doesn't really care for Sam Raimi's style of storytelling because this movie drags in the middle.
Okay, I want to clarify drag for this movie because I agree with you, but I think it's a little different than some of the other dragging elements, right? There are a lot of scenes that get extended. The one that comes to mind is the one with the train, right? we could just do the heroic feat of stop the train. We could do the whole like, the neighborhood is rallying around, they want Spider-Man to be there, and it's an important like turning of events, and I get it. That scene takes
Also,
11 fucking minutes. We could have done it in 4.
yeah. Also, funny fucking cameo from Coco Diaz.
I think that like there are ways in which like there are scenes that don't need to be included. There's a lot of bits and pieces that go into the background storytelling that become unnecessary or extended or whatever. To go back and watch these, I didn't really realize how much of a vehicle the second movie was to building the third movie.
Yeah.
Like not to jump into the plot of the movie we haven't fucking watched yet, but like we've set up now 3 movies building the villain origin for James Franco to become a bad guy, right? Like we've spent 2 movies doing that. And while you can set up seeds, and I get that it's important, like this one is just a vehicle to carry us into the third one in a lot of different places.
Which is kind of a pet peeve of me with second movies. Like, granted, The Empire Strikes Back is kind of sort of a vehicle to get to like the, third movie, kind of. But there's also shit in there where it stands on its own.
I was gonna say, I don't know that would have been my favorite example to choose from, but I hear you.
I'm saying that's the only one that does it right that I don't hate.
Fair. I don't know. I think this one has its merits as a standalone movie, but
yeah, I do too.
And part of it falls victim to the idea that we're watching all 3 back to back, right? Like to watch this on release before the third one came out. There's obviously they're setting up that there will be another sequel, but it's not so egregiously bad that this becomes unwatchable.
Right, and unfortunately, a lot of things are egregiously bad and it becomes unwatchable. Pirates of the Caribbean 2.
Fair. I don't know. I think that there is like I did mention this that like Stallman brought it up again that like I don't necessarily like Sam Raimi's form of storytelling. I think that there are ways in which this could have been rechunked, reshaped, like redone to get the same value out of this movie for the things that were good. But I'm kind of with you that like there are pieces of it that feel clunky.
Or just like add a little bit more action during like those fucking slow parts, because like I remember like we were just like sitting there and then all of a sudden it's like, oh hey, here's the Ted actually says, oh hey, here's the villain that we haven't like talked about, and like I don't know, for most of the movie he finally shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the storyboard sequencing of jumping back and forth between the plot lines of Tobey Maguire going through his mental health, right, versus the Dr. Octopus plot line versus the Mary Jane plot line versus what's his fucking Harry's plot line, right? That like, and it just kind of like the sequencing of things makes it where like, it's not in an ideal fashion that you're kind of like, oh yeah, we were dealing with Dr. Octopus. I forgot because of the other 4 plot lines we addressed. It's been 45 minutes. Like the storyboard chunking out of things, it gets told in a linear fashion. So I don't mean to sound like it's hard to follow. Like, you obviously know what's going on, but if you're really paying attention, it's like, man, the entire purpose of this movie is to fight Dr. Octopus from building a fucking sun in a garage somewhere, and we haven't touched that in 45 minutes. Like, it's sequenced out very clunky, and because of like the way in which Raimi cares about building that background, it's in such long chunks that there is so much of a gap in between everything that you need to know that's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because like otherwise, it's like, oh right, yeah, Dr. Octopus. It's like in the middle of the script. It's like, yeah, I forgot. This is what the movie's about.
Yeah.
That's
sticking with dislikes. I want to talk about Dr. Octopus for a minute. I will get to this again in likes, but I'm going to gloss over the idea that I think this is a well-developed character and well flushed out. There's kind of no explanation for the character change at the end. And that it feels like they took a very good storyline and a very good character and they washed it away because, oh shit, we have 2.5 hours of movie and somebody needs to put the sun under the ocean, right? Like, the ending of that character is incredibly shitty.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but like this is coming from someone that's familiar of like who Dr. Octopus like is, cuz like he's someone that's not really like a evil character. It's like he's, lost his goddamn mind.
Right.
So,
And even then, like, to do the thing that's
but
correct
it
for
is
humanity
rushed.
because
It
he's
is very rushed.
I feel like if the coming to morality was the idea, because like you said, the origins of Doc Ock are not like evil. It's just mad scientist vibes, right? Like, if that's the
Right.
case, stop making him seem like an evil villain jackass doing things for the sake of being evil throughout the whole movie, right? If that's the ending you're building to, build your character around that.
Right.
What ends up happening is that they develop
Is
a
that he
character.
recognizes that it's Peter, and that he's just like, "Oh, hey, Peter, how you doing?" It's like he was
Oh,
kind of like a dementia
you
patient.
were a student of mine once. I guess I don't want to kill everybody by building sun on Earth, right? Like, no, like it's they do so much to just make him evil. I'm gonna reference the train scene again. He's trying to kill a train full of people because fuck that Spider-Man guy, I guess, right? Like, no, they do a good job at building out a very evil character. And then it's just like, well, I guess the ending means we were going for mad scientist, so fuck it. He had students once, so I guess it's okay. Like, it's the ending.
Thank you for making him an Alzheimer's patient.
Right. The ending ruins the good job that they did building the character through the whole movie.
I still like the line, "I will not die a monster." Like that scene's still
Yeah.
pretty good, but
Again, I have so many positive things to say about Doc Ock, and they ruined it with the ending.
yeah. Um, are we gonna go into likes now?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's all I had for dislikes, at least ones that are notable.
Yeah. Likes for me. I think Rosemary Harris does a hell of a good job as Aunt May in this. Like she's given a lot more screen time. And what I kind of like is that they kind of allude that she knows that Peter's Spider-Man, but doesn't want to admit that she knows.
Yeah, I think that like giving her the screen time and the dialogue, like I think it makes her a better character. In the first movie, it felt more Christopher Nolan blow by kind of thing, where it's like if we spend
Right.
11 seconds on this scene, you get the idea onto the next thing. And this one, they like actually gave her a character, which was good. Have to agree with you there.
Also, um, again, Tobey Maguire's still great, and I like that I actually do like the plot where he is struggling between his personal life and um being Spider-Man. Like it definitely makes the character a hell of a lot more human as opposed to like shall we say like the stereotype of like Superman, like everything is perfect. He doesn't have to struggle with anything
Fuck
because he's
Superman.
always Superman, you know?
Fuck Superman. Yeah, no, I have to agree. And I think it's a valuable part of that world building too.
I also like Harry's character arc is pretty good too. Like he just basically, becomes a degenerate fucking alcoholic until he finally, just snaps and listens to like his like voices of his dad in his head to
Yeah.
finally become the Green Goblin. I think like Franco did for the most part a good performance, although there's a couple of times where it's just kind of wooden.
It definitely feels more like a Broadway stage act at certain points than it does a movie acting. And not to say that it's bad necessarily, but it does feel overdone, I guess.
Yeah.
Precisely the scene where he unmasks Spider-Man is Peter,
Right.
and he just staggers back and drops the knife and is in such a state of woe is me disbelief, right? Like again, very theatrical, not very movie and human. But yeah, like it's still not a bad performance.
Um, I mean, Kirsten Dunst's an improvement, but like you could have done worse than the last movie.
She looks very high at certain points. The same way that, like, if you've ever seen Twilight, like Kristen Stewart is obviously not that bad, but also like, I don't want to be here. Let me put no enthusiasm into this. And then they gave her a more important role in this one than the last one. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, she's a fine
Um,
actress, but Spider-Man's not the shtick.
but I think when it really comes down to this movie, best part about this, Alfred Molina as Doctor Octopus.
For
I
sure.
think. He's
I think they did a very good job at building a villain origin story. The one
yeah,
thing that like I think superhero movies need to do more of is exploring the villains, right? Like, to do the same hero repeatedly over and over again makes things kind of stale. And I think this movie does a really good job at both like explaining who Dr. Octavius is, going over his motives, giving very clear cut, this is the reason that this happens, and he does this to move on to the next thing that he does, right? Like the purpose, the path, the all of the motivating factors, all of the physical and biological factors in this one, as far as like the thing fusing to his neck, right? Like they do a very good job at building out this character. I think that like motives are very clear. I think that like there's no question who he is, what he's doing, or why, and it's not just bad guy for the sake of being bad guy. They really flush out a character.
um, and to me, it's like I know that Alfred Molina's known for like other roles, but to me, like he's Doctor Octopus for now on, kind of like
Yeah.
William Defoe is like he's Norman Osborn.
Well, so that's just it for me, right? Is that I think Molina was such a perfect cast because like you mentioned earlier, he's not this big theatrical bad guy, right? Like he's a scientist, and like the motives are there, right? So to
Yeah,
sometimes have like a dry, intelligent character who's not over the top, like Willem Dafoe is big and bold and loud and boisterous, much like the Green Goblin is, right? Like
right.
this character isn't that, and I think that Molina is so good because he does have much more stoicism to him. It's very intelligent, calculated, and a more flat demeanor, I guess. It's a really good cast. The character, again, it's consistent. The only time I have any complaints is the very end, and I much more chalk that up to writing rather than Molina
Yeah.
at all.
I do like the fact that he kind of has a similar story to Norman Osborn, as in like they're obsessed with like their work, and like their work is basically what turns them into a villain. But what I like is like the subtle differences, because with uh Norman, he's kind of set up to be a dick to begin with, and like he's just obsessed with like his work and his success in his company, that it ends up, you know, not just like um going insane from the that serum that he takes to become the Green Goblin. It's kind of shows like, those dark aspects of his personality are there. And with like Molina's case, um has the same vibe, but I think the kind of difference is that it seems like with like Norman Osborn, a lot of things is like for selfish gain, while in Molina's case, it's more so like for the better good of the planet. Cause like he's trying to make, nuclear fusion a thing, so that way, clean energy and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So like he's trying to better the world, and he's just like the means justify the ends, as opposed to like Norman Osborn, like, I need my company to be a success. Oh, these people are pissing me off. I'm killing them. Now I'm gonna run the whole city because I want power.
yeah. I think too that like
Which
that
makes the endings kind of fit with why Dr.
sure.
Octopus is redeemable at the end. It's just super rushed.
Right. I also think too that like that kind of betterment of the world narrative also helps the world building. Like, one of the big things from Spider-Man is Spider-Man's New York's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? And this one very does a very good job at flushing out the idea that like this is New York, right? I like
Hence the Joey Diaz cameo.
right. I think that like they do a much better job at like actually fitting the scenery rather than, well, I guess this could take place anywhere. Like, to go back and watch the first one, obviously the Green Goblin appears in Times Square, but realistically they could have done that like anywhere. It didn't need to be
Right.
New York. And this one it did a much better job at flushing out like, nope, this is Spider-Man, this is New York, this is like they really used the scenery and the city to their advantage in a way that I liked a lot.
Yeah,
World
absolutely.
building definitely a plus.
Also, J.K. Simmons obviously does an awesome job. Like
Chef's
he can
kiss.
do no wrong in this role.
Yeah, no, finally coming to terms with the I rushed him out, I made him quit, like, what have I done? And then the suit gets stolen, he's like, that guy's a fucking menace! And we just go right back. Like, man, JK, love JK Simmons.
You have anything else to add? I mean, because I guess we could talk about like camera angles and stuff like that. It's like they're better in this one than the last one, but like what we could say in this one's like basically what we said in the last movie.
Yeah, I think that the way in which they used the camera limited the CGI or made it far less egregious, right? There were very few moments in this one that it's like, oh man, what a shitty computer trying to run this. I think that they did a much better job at catering to their capability. But again, like you said, I don't think it's super notably different than the last one and the positives that you have to give it there. I don't think Spider-Man is an easy thing to necessarily plan for camera angles and shots. And, it doesn't get in the way, which is genuinely a much bigger positive than just something neutral. But it's
Right.
very similar to the last one.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's what I got. As far as the big things go, little bits here and there, but that's the big stuff for me. Which brings us to rankings. Yep.
This is fucking difficult for me because like out of like the actually out of all like the Spider-Man movies, like or should I say Spider-Man villains in like the movies that have been made, like Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus is my favorite. So I do have like a warm spot for this, but like due to the pacing, I think the first Spider-Man might be a better movie objectively.
I'm with you there. I think that the first Spider-Man also gets some points for novelty, where this one, like I said, it builds off the same storyboard arc, right? Like, different villains, different plots, I get it, but it's also like, if you really boiled it down and just gave me the very small basics of this movie, like, they're the same plot.
Yeah.
So I certainly think that the first one is better for that novelty factor. I think this one is probably done better, but I don't think that, like, if you watch them back to back, I think whichever one you watch first is going to be your favorite, to be honest. I don't know. For me, I'm dropping this a little bit just because it doesn't bring its own thing to the table, and it is that vehicle for the third movie. For me, I'm actually going to stick this fourth, believe it or not.
Wow.
It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that I am putting it behind Quick and the Dead and Army of Darkness. I think the things that those movies brought to the table just kind of are a higher value than doing Spider-Man 1 a second time. So
Yeah, I'm putting this at number 2 for me.
okay,
Like it's like although I do it's like I would it's like I would rewatch this over rewatching A Simple Plan. Like even though
sure.
I think A Simple Plan is like actually no, actually more when I think about it plot wise it's probably not better cuz it kind of drags out as well, if not more so.
Simple Plan drags hard.
Yeah.
Simple Plan drags real hard.
So, yeah, number 2 for me.
Fair enough.
But like now I'm kind of like going back to like, the Bond podcast with you. It's just like, well, I like this movie that I like this thing better than this movie that I ranked a lot lower.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, when you mention Army of Darkness, I'm like, you know what? It's like, yeah, I'll put it below Army of Darkness. I'm like, oh wait, I have Simple Plan above Army of Darkness. I'm like, no, like, no, this isn't better than a simple. This isn't worse than a Simple Plan. Worse
Yeah.
than a Simple Plan. Uh, so yeah, so number 2 for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think this could easily be second. Like I always decide where I'm ranking it, like, in the moment, and just as I'm going back through and looking at old notes, like, nah, Quick of the Dead, nah, Army of Darkness, like, there's some novelty to those that this could easily be second. Like, I don't want it to feel like it's, not a very good movie, and definitely in the top half of Raimi films, but it's also, like, I watched this movie the week before with watching Spider-Man 1, and that's, like, that's the hardest part for me to give it as much credit as it probably deserves as its own standalone.
Yeah, and it's also kind of hard to do that with like a franchise, because like we had kind of troubles with like the Bond movies,
Yeah.
especially when seeing repeated tropes over and over and over, it gets old.
Yeah.
Especially since someone that we had on the podcast before, it's just like, let me guess, it ends with him on a boat.
Right.
But
All right.
that being said,
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's it. Unless you got anything else.
no, I don't.
All right. So, in that case, thank you guys for watching. As always, we dragged on a little bit in this one, much like we're a Sam Raimi movie. But appreciate you hanging out to the end, regardless if you made it to this point.
Hangovers are fun.
So next week will be Spider-Man 3, believe it or not.
Oh god. No, it's not. It's Drag Me to Hell.
Is it really?
No, it's
okay.
not. It's Spider-Man 3. I'm making a joke that I don't want to watch Spider-Man 3.
No, I'm excited for Spider-Man 3. I think I've only seen this one twice. The first two I've seen dozens of times. I think I've only seen 3 twice. So I'm kind of interested to give this one a shake.
I'm pretty sure I've only seen it twice as well.
I want to give this one a shot, like, to watch it instead of,
to meme on it
10 fucking years ago and just saying pizza time and moving on with my life, right? Like, but anyway, yeah, next week, Spider-Man 3. We'll be around for that. You can hop in the Discord and watch movies with us. Schedule's been pretty inconsistent lately. We've got like lives to live, but if you hop in the Discord, we'll at least post about it when it's coming, so you can keep your eyes on that. As always, if you're interested in the rest of our content, we've done so many fucking movies at this point. You can go back through the channel. They should all be in a playlist here. You can watch them all, as well as the rest of the content on the YouTube. And if you're interested in our individual content, you can catch us both on Twitch, myself at Ted Green Eagles, and Stallman at Traductus. And I think that's everything we got. So we will see you here for Spider-Man 3 next week.
Yep. See ya.